How did you get drawn into constitutional law as you look back on it?
You know, after I graduated from University of Chicago, I took time off to write the great American novel. I ended up writing a couple of not-so-great American plays. And I decided that I would go to grad school. It was rather an odd transition because I'm a lifelong backpacker, and I had come down with arbolencephalitis on a hiking trip to California. And I made it back to Chicago and actually collapsed at a party after I arrived. And I was out for a number of days. And I decided in the hospital I wanted to go to graduate school. I was either going to get a PhD in history or go to law school. And I ended up, I was, to my surprise, because I was applying late, getting some offers from law schools, and I decided to do that. But I had always been drawn to lawyers after watching their work with my mother and my father at Jane Addams Hall House. I was surprised at how much they could do. You know, we would go into slum housing where I remember one family was living on the third floor of a three-story building, and there was an actual hole in the roof where the rain would just come directly down. But for this mother and her three children, it was still better than living on the street. And I was astonished in watching, my mother would fight with these slum landlords, go toe-to-toe, nose-to-nose with them. But then they would bring in these young pro bono lawyers, and they would make fast work of this. And I thought, that's a pretty cool thing in terms of service, that you can change the lives of a family like this. One day they're living in literally a home with a hole in the roof, and the next week you found them shelter and you've shut that down.
That is fantastic. I went to law school because it was the only thing I could think I could do with a history and political science degree from here. But it worked out great. I loved it, and I used it in my M&A practice, et cetera, and I'm still using it. But
well, you can
it's
see
a great overview for people to have.
Yeah, and you can see in my books that I am still unrequited historian, that I delve a lot into history in my books, and I do think it's still that pool that I had.